Good morning and happy Monday. I hope everybody had a fabulous weekend. Oh, you know who had a fabulous weekend? A couple individuals pop out. Oh, Mr. Bo Jiden being supported by, Barry O, who is back, baby. Elon Musk maybe as well. But before we get into it, Ms. Monica, how you doing today?
Oh, doing wonderful. It's great to be back after a long weekend and being able to hang out with the family.
Extended long weekend.
Extended long weekend. Did you get to cover the Thursday show?
I did. It was fabulous.
Yes.
And you got to recover.
Yes.
I got to cover, you got to recover.
Lots of stuff going on in the news, obviously. But we've got some very interesting things to discuss today.
We do. We're going to keep it a little brisk here because it's just that kind of day. Before we get started, I do want to take a moment and say, we've talked about this. We've got a couple of other shows in the pipeline, and we are actually going to make a conscious effort to get our first ones out this week. As you can see, we are huge fans of Doctor Who. I mean, this is the real one right here. That one's all right, but this one's
whatever.
Peter Capaldi is the boy. So if you are a fan of Doctor Who, keep an eye out. We're aiming for debuting our new show this Saturday night, the Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey Show.
Yes, very excited to do a not in sequence rewatch of some of our favorite scenes and forced to rewatch some
the Whittaker era. Just go ahead and say it's okay. If anyone who is into Doctor Who will understand. And hey, you may agree, you may disagree, but more on that later. Keep an eye out for that video. But
yes,
hey,
and to see it go live, make sure that you are liking our channel on YouTube, Rumble, whichever you watch it in, and then also keeping up with the podcast if you don't have time to watch a video on iHeartRadio, Spotify.
Didn't you just send me a link for iTunes? Yep, we have iTunes as well. I'll make sure that link is updated in the description. I'm going to flash that little like and subscribe one more time. Oh, it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, so smash that like button. Make sure you're turning on the alerts so that you are aware of when we go live with things and when we update some of our newer stuff like our Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey rewatch.
Absolutely. Having said that, let's get to the news. First up, as a follow-up from, hey, that's not the right screen. Oh, hold up one moment here. I've got to change my display here. We have an infinity effect going on.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we got there. Figuring it out, folks. Figuring it out.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, there we go. Technical difficulties. Now, this is a follow-up to a story that I touched on Thursday, and I really wanted Monica to go into detail about it. This is from Kiplinger. Interest rates expect 6 more rate hikes this year. Kiplinger's latest forecast on interest rates. Like I said, we talked about this a little bit on Thursday, but I am nowhere near an expert. And to be fair, Anywho. Monica, why don't you go into this story with us and let's talk about it a little more in depth.
Well, and I will reiterate, I am in no way an expert. This is just an opinion on what we've seen and being in the market. I was a real estate agent for the past 3 years down in Raleigh, and some of the craziness that 3-year period saw.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely different than any time before that.
It's not that you're an expert, but you're certainly closer to the pulse than, the plebes.
Yes. But so this is an article from Kiplinger, March 17th, 2022. So in line with what we're seeing right now, Federal Reserve raised the federal funds interest rate by 1/4 percentage point today, and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell suggests that more rate hikes were to come in order to fight inflation. He expects inflation to drop below 3% by the end of 2022. But Powell is concerned that the current high inflation rates near 8% might cause businesses and workers to increase their expectations of future inflation, thus raising prices and wages in a self-fulfilling prophecy. As a result, expect 6 more federal funds rate increases this year, 1 at each meeting. Powell also expects that the Fed will start selling Treasury and mortgage-backed securities from its balance sheet this year, called Quantitative Tightening, or QT. Look for this to be announced at the Fed's May 4th meeting, with sales to begin in June. Powell promised that securities would be sold, unlike the last time the Fed did QT back in 2017 to 2019, when it simply stopped replacing securities as they matured. Now, what that means for some of us out there in the regular world, kind of going, okay, well, how does that affect everything? Well, for the last couple of years, we've all seen the housing market be completely insane. There's not enough supply for people who are qualified for these mortgages. Now, the Fed being raised isn't a direct raise on mortgage rates. They don't have control over that. But mortgage rates historically push up when the Fed gets raised, because when you're being charged a higher interest rate, you're going to push that down the line to your consumers as far as the bank is concerned. And if you scroll down, long-term rates, such as for mortgages, are not directly affected by the Fed raises short rates, but may follow short rates higher because the current inflationary environment. Expect the Treasury 10-year yield to rise to 2.5% by the end of 2022. The rise in the 10-year rate will also push up mortgage rates from the current average of 4.2% for 30-year fixed-rate loans to 4.5% by the end of 2022. 15-year fixed-rate mortgages rise from 3.2% to 3.8%.
Now, we're going to take a quick moment here. So, wow. What was I remember you mentioning this, the 4.2 that we're currently at. What was it, say, a year or two ago? What was the rate the last time you were in that game?
We were consistently seeing people come in with like 3% rates or lower.
Yeah.
And then you get into all of the different breakdowns of the different types of mortgages that you can get and jumbo loan packages. And I mean, definitely if you're considering purchasing a home or selling your home and purchasing another, talk to your mortgage broker. Right now is that time period where it's almost a feeding frenzy, because you see it coming. When you see a 0.3%, it doesn't sound like a whole lot. When you're talking, going from $2,100 a month for a mortgage to $2,500 a month mortgage, it does add up. So you're seeing that jump, and even a partial percentage point. That's why people buy down points when they first get their mortgages. And I mean, we financed at 5, so it's not like it can't be done.
Well, that wasn't here. That was about 4 years ago.
Yes.
But I mean, even that was the complications behind that were insane. When we went to refinance and they did it properly, we were originally speculated at like 2.5%.
I think so.
It was low. It was much lower.
But
much lower.
But at the time, 5 was okay. But the housing market prices were affordable as well. You could still find a house in the $100,000 range. Yep. That is livable and acceptable. And a lot of people don't understand that when you're borrowing, when you're getting a mortgage, they'll look at the value of the house, but also the livability of the house. They're not going to finance a house that you cannot live in for your standard everyday mortgage. So there's a lot of confusion out there when you get into the real estate game of, well, I can afford this much a month. Yes, but what type of loan do you have? And this is all going to end up being, in my opinion, we're going to see a huge feeding frenzy in the market. People will buy up whatever they can. And then people will start to realize that the what they're paying for houses isn't worth it. So a lot more of our generation will start to decide to continue renting, or continue living with parents or in-laws or whoever, to avoid those mortgage rates and to avoid the cost of living that we've been seeing.
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge shift in the American ideology from, okay, we're going to own our house and we're going to be out and about, and now we're going back to staying home longer.
It's almost like
and
we're
paying off debt.
Pushing for a reset of sorts, maybe on a great scale, almost like you kind of want people to own nothing, but I'm sure they'll be happy.
Well, and here's the thing is that the Fed has to be very careful with this, because if they raise rates too quickly and inflation stays high for too long, you're looking at a deep recession, because not only can people not afford to borrow, they can't afford to spend.
So let me ask you this, and this is going to be the first question out of anyone who is especially skeptical because of the nature of you, me, and the environment we live in. Is this something that can just be purely blamed, it's all Biden's fault like other things, or is it a current administration thing, or is this something that has been building up and it's just a natural wax and wane of the industry?
This is definitely something that has been building up. The rate that we're going to see it come down really depends on the current administration, and I don't have much faith in that. I have more faith in the fact that, historically we've seen these things plunge and drop and become catastrophic. But we've really gotten this mentality, and there was an article that I was reading that said, what if we had a recession and nobody showed up?
Huh.
Meaning,
That's an interesting thought.
what if historically, this is supposed to happen, but we just decide not to let it? That's great an idea, but a lot of times these things happen because you're not producing. You can't live on credit for the rest of your life.
Not normally, no.
Which is this horrible mentality that a lot of us have, being brought up in an era where you can go thousands of dollars into debt for student loans.
Yes.
And
predatory.
And now we're sitting right on top of the beginning of next month. Those loans are supposed to be kicked back into payback mode. So how many people are going to be defaulting on student loans, and how will that affect them in the future?
Yep.
And what is the administration going to do when part of what they ran on was zero student loan debt?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious, even to the stooges who went for it, that they say whatever they need to say to get elected, and then they immediately backtrack, and it will never happen. And unfortunately, there's enough, and this is the DNC's words, not mine, from the WikiLeaks drop in 2016. They have enough, quote, useful idiots to get these things done, or at least to get them passed. Because you don't read the bill, you hear a nice, pleasant-sounding title about something, and you go, oh, I'm on board, because I wouldn't be against that. And unfortunately, they got the stooges in, they expected results, but it doesn't work like that.
Well, they drove up costs of education so much.
Yes.
And we're not saying that, teachers and stuff shouldn't be paid, but these universities are making hand over fist.
Oh,
I mean, they are just raking in money to teach ideologies. And how many classes did we take to get our degree that were not linked anything with our degree?
Yep.
And they're floating these programs like they're floating credit. If we keep printing money, maybe we won't have to deal with the recession, and that's not how this happens.
Yeah, no.
You keep spending on programs, and you can't run on a platform of forgive all student debt.
Right.
It might be conceivable to start to cut back on the interest rates on student loans, or,
like, that kind of thing I would be all for. Like, if they came out and they said, okay, it's ludicrous to think that all of your debt should be forgiven. However, from here forward, all interest rates and
we're
all
not
interest
make
based,
money off
exactly.
We're
not going to make money off of you trying to buy yourself an education for a better life. That would be the smart thing to do, but unfortunately, it's starting to feel more and more like these heads of state are essentially mafia dons saying, "Hey, where's my cut?"
That's the really scary part, is that they built these student loans in and these packages in where we think, okay, we're going to go out, we're going to put ourselves $30,000 in debt, and it's going to make up for it in our job down the road.
Boy, if only it was only 30,000, right?
Well,
if you are laser focused, if you get your stuff, if you're smart and go to like community college first and get all the basics out of the way, then yes, 30,000 is probably.
But then you have people who think that it was free money, and they don't understand the concept that they do have to pay that back.
Yeah.
And the government has it set up there. They're expecting that payback because otherwise their coffers don't stay full. They can't continue to dole out money and then not have it paid back to them. Somebody has to pay. So who is it? Where does that come from? And if we forgive future interest rates, those are still things that we as a government have been expecting. So how are we going to make up for that? And
Absolutely.
Giving away money to other countries for their aid is not going to assist us in that.
No. And we will definitely, as everybody knows, we will get into the sheer incompetence of our government. But before we move on to our next story, we would never, ever give financial advice. That's up to you. However, in your opinion, if somebody, say, was thinking about buying a house, what advice would you yourself take that they could then take into consideration?
Well, so I was talking to my sister the other day, and we were talking about selling a house, purchasing a house, and kind of the time that we're in. There's maps of different areas of the United States where home prices have not inflated as much as other areas.
You're talking more like rural areas.
Well, and it can go state by state. It can go specific county by county. If you're purchasing a house in an area and you know that price is way overinflated for what the true value of the home is.
Yeah, you can always look at historical data. They usually always provide it. But.
Yes, and talk to your local real estate agent because they'll be able to tell you, yes, this is consistently the price over the last couple of years, or no, this is jumped 15% higher
Yep.
in the last year. Now, if you're looking at that, if it's something that you can afford, by all means, but don't put yourself in a position where you're buying a house in an already inflated area that you can't long-term afford if the value goes down. So when you're thinking about purchasing your home and you're going to go and buy a $700,000 home,
Right.
if the value on that home dips, are you going to stay there long enough for the value to recoup? Because you're essentially buying into an area hoping that the value in that area either maintains or goes up. But realistically, if it's already gone up, 15-20%, how much higher is it going to climb?
There is a ceiling. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
just be cautious that if you're in one of those areas, is there a reason for maintained growth, or does it seem like that area is going to stagnate? Because once it stagnates, are you going to stay there for the next 10 years to recoup your money?
Yep.
Or are you going to try and move? Because if you move on a downswing, you're going to lose out.
Absolutely. So make sure you do your research. Definitely look into, like she said, expansion over the 5 or 10 years. Something that was happening in Raleigh, like I mentioned on Thursday, was, Apple was coming in, Amazon was coming in. Things were being built and prospects were there. So in that kind of situation, granted, that place is a madhouse as far as real estate goes. Like I said, like we touched on. You do the research and you see, okay, well, this is expensive. However, they're in a state of growth. Like, they are obviously in a state of growth, and therefore it's at least safer than some of these other things. So really, the best thing someone can do is really just research.
Yes.
Don't dive into anything. Make sure you look at the bigger picture, especially with the pinch that's coming. Any closing thoughts before we hop on to the Lord and Savior of the Democratic Party returning?
Well, I really think that people need to look at their investments wisely coming up
Yes.
in this year. Whether you're and there's a lot of speculation. Well, buy into Bitcoin or Doge or any of those.
No one's talking about Doge. Come on.
Or, put your money into Wall Street. Well, is that going to bottom out?
Yep.
Put your money into savings. Well, is that earning enough? I think this is one of those points where no matter what you decide to do, diversify.
I was going to say, doing something is probably the most important thing,
Yes.
because the scariest thing about inflation is that the value of your money today is more than the value of your money tomorrow. If you just sit on your savings and hope that the value will increase, inflation will just knock you down a couple pegs. So again, no financial advice here, but I would start just looking at like you said, diversifying your portfolio.
Well, and make sure that you're investing in things that you believe in, not just because you think the market's swinging,
Yes. Do your research.
and make sure that you're promoting that. Like,
Yep.
we are boycotting Disney.
Oh, everybody should be boycotting Disney.
But that's
Child
our
groomers.
personal choice.
Oh, of course,
And
of course.
that's one of those things that I wouldn't invest in any of their stuff right now as much as it's being pushed. I
Nope.
wouldn't invest in a vacation to Disney.
Never.
That's not where we would spend our money.
Nope.
So yeah, it's all about personal choice in the market, and I think that Tim was right about this being one of those times where you'll see conservatives and liberals extremely split on where that money needs to go.
Got it. Fabulous. A nice little segment there. We have no segue, so here we go. From Breitbart, Barack Obama plans White House return to cheer Obamacare with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That's right, folks. Biden is doing so terribly, so god-awful, they have resurrected their Lord and Savior, Barack Obama, to come and attempt to bail him out. Now, anyone who has paid attention historically has known Barry O don't mean much these days. He tried to come out in the Georgia elections and tried to push his candidates, and they all got they wiped the floor with him. I mean, that's the best way I can say it. However, they are hoping that maybe this will. You know what? Let's speculate at the end. Former President Barack Obama on Tuesday will make his first return to the White House since leaving office, where he will join President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to applaud the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, also known as one of the worst things happened in this country in a while. Obama is scheduled to, quote, deliver remarks celebrating the success of the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid and extending affordable health insurance to millions of Americans as part of the president's agenda to cut costs for American families, according to a White House agenda seen by The Hill. Ongoing efforts to strengthen that act are expected to be touched on, adding to a policy first signed 12 years ago during Obama's first term in office. Quote, 12 years ago, I proudly stood beside President Barack Obama as he signed into law the most consequential expansion of healthcare in generations, the Affordable Care Act. Boy, it's funny reading these statements, and you get to the end of it, and you're like, come on, man. Is that really what he said? With a stroke of a...
Well, I mean, yeah, I can see that being
carrying
racist
the
as a
water
statement,
nonstop. It is insane. With the stroke of a pen, after decades of tireless efforts, millions of Americans gained peace of mind. And because of my administration's efforts, including passing the landmark American Rescue Plan, we have lowered healthcare costs and made coverage more accessible than ever, even amid a global pandemic. Whether or not, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has already revealed she believes her greatest accomplishment in the political realm is Obamacare. Whether or not Biden feels the same way remains to be seen. Wow. I mean, this is certainly a sign of the times. We already know that there is just a growing sentiment in this country against, I'm going to go ahead, we'll say the Democrats, and I always say this all the time. To clarify, when I say the Democrats, I'm literally talking about the Uniparty, because the Republicans are trash too, or at least by and large.
The people who vote in these policies.
Exactly. But the fact that they're wheeling Obama out just shows the level of desperation that they're at to try to turn public sentiment. Polls have been in, and the numbers do not look good. And for the Democratic Party, for the midterms, for Beau Biden, no matter how you look at it, they're drowning. And so what do? They wheel out their Lord and Master.
Well, and it's interesting that this is the approach that they're going to take with it, is to lean back on the Affordable Care Act.
Yes, exactly. They're touting that as their big thing.
And really, if you look at it, it has done nothing for our healthcare system. If anything, it's done more harm than good.
Again, anytime a Democrat presents a bill, whatever the title is, operate under the assumption, and again, when I say Democrat, I mean Uniparty, operate under the assumption that the bill will do the exact opposite of whatever the title is. The title, they always sugarcoat it to the diabetic extreme to make it seem so good. The Affordable Care Act. Well, you're not against affordable care, are you? It's always meant to be a spin to make you look bad for disagreeing with it, when in fact, all it did was screw over the majority for the minority. Really quick, I want to show you this. This is from Civics. This is, let me make this just a little bit bigger here so we can see it. This is Joe Biden's job approval. Do you approve or disapprove of the way Joe Biden is handling his job as president? As of right now, 53% disapprove. Let's see. We have all respondents. This is all respondents. I didn't cut it up into anything else. 53% disapprove. 37% approve. Interestingly enough, I saw something earlier that was talking about how long a president historically has maintained a negative overall approval. In this case, it was negative 25. It's basically you take the approval and subtract the disapproval, and it shows the balance of them. At this point in their presidencies, Barack Obama had the negative approval for 3 days. President Trump had it for 3 days. How long do you think Beau Biden has had this negative approval, just off the top of your head?
60 days.
That is a very, very fair and safe guess. Probably 104 days.
That seems reasonable.
104 days. And I mean, here, I didn't mean to put that away just quickly. You can really see, here's the American Rescue Plan. 47 approve, 47 disapprove. Understandable. I mean, we always have to take out the outliers. We know, by and large, Republicans are going to hate Biden by definition. And by and large, Democrats are going to support him by definition, because the parties go what the parties go. So that's why you always have to look at the outliers, and especially the independents, because that's what they're looking at. They want to sway the invisible third party, which is the independent vote. So when I see 47 approve, 47 disapprove, and then 7% neither approve or disapprove, it's like, okay, people were pretty split, but at the same time, a majority was like, okay, you know what? Give it a chance.
Well, because they're losing people on multiple issues.
Yep. Watching the timeline here, so we go to the Delta variant becomes dominant. The disapproval takes the lead at 49. The Taliban captures Kabul, hops up to 50. Approval drops. And then from then on, you see the infrastructure bill signed. Now we're up to 55 disapprove, 36 approve. Omicron's classified, 54. And I mean, we go all the way to, the COVID-19 death toll being at what it was, which looks like 900,000 at this, 55% to 35%. And now it has teetered a little bit down because Ever since Russia invaded Ukraine, you see it's trending downward to today. Mostly because the one thing that can historically save a president's floundering administration, times of war.
Well, yeah, and I believe that historically the United States has not switched administrations during active war unless they're at the end of the allowable time in office.
Yep, it's always been a speculation that the one thing that can save any floundering administration is a time of war, because we as the people will always generally unite against a common foe. However, you see, even though there is a downward trend on this, at the same time, it is not big, and the upward trend on the approval is not large either. So most people are not buying this as a unifying cause for us to be there, especially with the sheer number of problems here.
Well, and they're continuing to push it, and it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, Biden is calling for war.
Yeah, he's all-out war.
Yes, and now you've got Obama stepping back into the limelight, trying to support. This is coming from a place of strength, and we're united. Okay. And then you even have Hillary.
Oh boy,
trying to come out.
Old Hillary's still
and
coming.
I didn't pull up the article, but
I saw it too.
Yeah, where she's sitting on the cover and she says, "Biden's not doing enough."
Yeah, she says Biden's not doing enough, and I even think I saw a clip that said, why isn't his approval rating higher? Like, why aren't the people on his side more?
And
this is coming from the woman who, during 2016, released that god-awful video where she was like, I don't know why my approval isn't 20 points higher. You remember that?
Well, because they can't seem to wrap their head around it.
It's hubris.
You know, and it really is. They think that these policies should work.
The people should love us.
Yes, they should love the idea of open gates and nobody's going to flood across the border. Well, yes, that was true, but you have people flooding across the border. They should love the idea of health care that everyone gets just because.
Not to mention mandated electronic vehicles by making gas unaffordable for everybody. But electric vehicles aren't affordable.
Well, and now they're putting more pressure on the auto industry as a whole to come up with 48 miles a gallon.
Oh, yeah. A new standard was, I want to say it was really soon, like a 2028, I think was the deadline to have. You're right. The miles per gallon average was they want it pushed up to almost 50.
Yes, which, I mean, if we could do that, great.
Oh, well.
But why are we regulating that? If someone wants a car that gets 16 miles per gallon.
Well, that's just it. You can't. It's the thing that they do where they generalize across the board, where they say every car should have 50 miles per gallon. And you're like, well, that sounds great, except your little Civic that gets 50 miles per gallon isn't going to haul the things that we need. And unfortunately, the bigger machine is going to get less miles per gallon. Mm-hmm. But we need it to because we need a more powerful machine.
Yes.
But they can't wrap their heads around it. To them, it's all or nothing.
Well, because they all think that the people who drive trucks are just out there dumping gas.
Oh, boy.
For the sake of dumping gas instead of actually using their trucks to do things, like
truckers are the real heroes, folks. I'm just going to throw that out there. Truckers are the real heroes here, man.
Well, and I'm even just talking like the regular everyday person who drives a truck who needs to haul their boat or haul a trailer or...
I include all truckers as somebody who has gotten stuck in a ditch before and was actually pulled out. I mean, literally. Okay, fine. We'll go into a little quick story. Got stuck in a ditch. Wasn't going anywhere. I made some phone calls.
Thanksgiving?
It was Thanksgiving. I made some phone calls to... actually, no, it was more recent. I think it was closer to Christmas. Because there was a lot of snow on the ground.
You're right.
Made some phone calls to tow truck companies, and they say, we'll get there when we get there. And I don't blame them. I believe it was a Sunday, so it was after hours. But at the same time, they were like, all right, just sit tight. We'll get there whenever we get there. So as I'm sitting there, just enjoying the moment, a truck pulls up. Actually, first a Jeep pulls up. He says, hey, you okay? I said, no, I'm waiting for a tow truck. He goes, okay, you know what? I'll be right back. He drives off. I'm like, okay, well, that was random. Another guy in a truck comes by. He pulls over. He goes, hey, you okay? I said, nah, I'm stuck. I'm just waiting for the tow truck. He says, okay, I got you. He gets out. He pulls out a chain out of the back of his truck. He hooks it up, and he starts trying to pull me up. He comes over and he goes, man, I don't think I got the strength to do it. And as he's talking to me, another truck pulls up. And he walks up to him, and he's like, hey, well, what's going on? And the guy turns. He's like, oh, I tried this, and this. And he's like, oh, you know what? I got something too. Let's try this too. He hooks his up. They start working together, and as they're helping me out, because they did get me out, but as I'm being pulled out, the guy in the Jeep comes back in his truck. Yep. And he comes up and he's like, oh, hey, fellas, did you get him? And they're like, yeah, we got him. And I said, oh, my God, if you guys were all driving, 50-mile-per-gallon Honda Civics, I'd have been screwed.
Well, I mean, it's also one of those small town mentalities.
True.
And when
it was
you
a beautiful
live,
moment.
when you live in this beautiful part of Michigan that does not have, well, not all roads are paved, and
True.
not all things are nice and middle of the town. It is the small town living and having to rely on your neighbor.
Yep.
You know, we just need to be able to scale that somehow and come up with a global solution to it.
You can't, unfortunately, because people who live in cities and the politicians that run them, in their mind, that is life. So if, say, a shooting war breaks out between rival gangs within a city, the governor will say, we need sweeping gun control legislation across the board. Zoom out to the state, and you got some guy out there with his gun saying, okay, well, I got problems with, I don't know, bears or coyotes or whatever. Insert random wilderness problem here because, yes, they exist. And suddenly they're being affected because of what's happening there. So it's a complete difference of mentalities. And we saw something where it said that maybe policy should be like county by county or region by region, which I would 100% agree with. You can't say, inner city problems are the exact same as small town problems because they're not.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have someone who's living in D.C. commuting back and forth, maybe their car doesn't need to haul anything, and it can definitely fit within the requirements. Yeah. But to just put that across the board and say, yep, everybody's got to live under this one mandate, and even state by state. Like you and I have talked about, we would love to own an electric vehicle.
Oh, absolutely. If a Tesla was affordable, I would own one. I've always wanted one.
Well, not only just was it affordable, we live in an area now where the range is decreased by something like 30%.
There's one thing they never talk about is what the temperature's effect is on. I mean, we hear all the time about charging problems and all these things, but they never talk about the battery itself and how if you live in any kind of cold environment, that battery is going to perform a lot worse than the standard.
I mean, even now, look at how often people in Michigan need to replace their car batteries and have issues with that because the extreme cold variations in the winter.
Exactly.
We've gone out to our car even just last Sunday before last.
Oh, jeez.
Doors hinges were freezing, and frozen. I mean, we're talking end of March.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I actually just saw it may have stopped. No, it's actually snowing now.
It is snowing again.
April 4th, and it is snowing. But hey, that's Michigan, and that's life. And Michigan isn't even the northernmost state. So that is, let's say, half the country is dealing with the prospect of it might snow, whereas the other half of the country is looking at, 60 to 80 degree weather this week, and that's okay. But the problem comes when people like Bo Jiden and people like these politicians make these sweeping reforms where they try to push things across all demographics, and at that point we have a problem. However, bringing it back to what you said, and this is a beautiful segue into our next article from the New York Post, what he's done to our border and what he's continued to do, this agenda that they're pushing, it's going to hurt. And unfortunately, Biden has opened the Title 42 gates. Prepare for madness. Again, shout out to Dr. Strange. As if the border crisis isn't damaging enough, with 2.5 million illegal immigrants having crossed into the United States since Joe Biden took office, now the administration is going to make it exponentially worse by unwinding the last Trump-era restriction. The Title 42 policy, implemented by the Trump administration during the pandemic to allow border officials to quickly expel migrants on public health grounds, will be terminated next month, the CDC has announced. Title 42 was the last tool that border officials... I'm sorry, I'm going to make that a little bigger for you. There we go. Just in case you're reading along with us. Hey, get here. Title 42 was the last tool that border officials had to stem the flow of illegal migration from more than 150 countries across the southern border. Now they are anticipating a doubling or tripling of numbers to as many as 18,000 a day. 18,000 illegal aliens just allowed to walk in and start taking advantage of all of the benefits that we pay for. No one's against immigration. Immigration is important to any country. However, if you don't have a country, if you don't have a system of getting immigrants to be citizens, and that is the biggest problem here.
Well, and one of the issues with this is when you let so many people influence your culture changes.
Yes.
Which I get it. They're trying to change a lot of the things about the United States, but the reason that we've been able to prosper and to grow like we did under Trump was because of the culture of the United States.
Exactly.
That drive to be the best and to be better.
Capitalism at its finest.
Well, and we're looking at we look at this like these people who come across the border just automatically contribute to society is what the Dems want to tell you.
Oh, of course.
You know, they come in and they're a functioning part of society. Who was the California person who would we have to clean our toilets?
Oh, that was Kelly Osbourne. She said that. She was on The View, and she said she was talking, this was 2015, I believe, and she was talking about Donald Trump, and she said, Donald Trump's so against illegal Mexicans, well, who's going to clean his toilet? And it was really, and we've seen it now just exploded since the pandemic, but it really was one of those little glimpses into the fact that celebrities are brain dead. They have a job, and that job is entertainment. They have a job to professionally lie, and for some reason that translates into this person's mentality should be revered.
Well, and we have seen this coming, and we need to just open our eyes to it and stop listening to celebrities when they talk about this kind of stuff. It is hilarious to make fun of them by all means, but to take someone seriously when they make a political stance, and then to see something about the way that they've acted in the past, like you and I were talking about the Blade trilogy that we're going to rewatch. You know that it came out on Netflix, that it's on there, so we're like, you know what? We will go ahead and just rewatch Blade. I loved Blade.
I was going to say, then it led to a discussion about, like, how were they? And it's like, we both love Blade. Everybody loves the first Blade because it's a classic. Yes. Blade 2, in a lot of ways, I really like it. There's a couple parts where, for some reason, wrestling moves come into the play, like blatant WWF moves.
Yes.
And that takes me out of it. But by and large, I love Blade 2.
Blade 3, I loved it. I don't remember much about it, but I do remember absolutely loving it. And I'm wondering if when we rewatch it, if I'm going to enjoy it as much as I did, especially
those rose-tinted goggles are coming off, baby.
Well, when you brought up the way Wesley Snipes acted.
Oh, well, yes. For those who are not aware, there is a notorious story.
And I was not aware.
Where Wesley Snipes, and this, again, just shows you how big a drama queens these individuals can be. There is a scene where Wesley Snipes, towards the end of the movie, is laying on a table, and his eyes open before he attacks. But if you watch it, you see his eyes open, and you go, wait a minute, that looked like those were CG'd. Well, it turns out that drama queen Wesley Snipes was having such a, I thought originally he was having a clash with the director, but really, apparently, he had zero interest of being there. He put a body double out. He was inebriated all the time from various sources. And it was such a prima donna that when they were trying to film the scene, he refused to just open his eyes for the scene. Yeah. He refused to do it. He laid there. He kept his eyes closed. So the director finally said, all right, cut. We'll just CGI his eyes opening. This is the level these people can get to when they think that their poo don't stink.
Well, and we've done it as a society. We've allowed people to have this mentality that just because they're famous, we should follow doctrine, everything that they say. Yep. And now we're paying for it because our politicians are playing that game where they want to be famous.
They want to be celebrities, so it's all about...
We've earned the AOCs of the world, people.
Oh, that's the best part. The AOCs of the world exist because we put them there. If you want to find a guilty party, you need only look in the mirror.
But we do have people fighting back against some of these policies.
Absolutely. We have people fighting back against these policies, and I mean, as a true testament to how far the quote-unquote mighty celebrity has fallen, the only reason anyone cares about them now is when we see them beat the crap out of each other. That's it.
I mean, it is entertaining.
It's entertaining.
That's horrible to say, but
no, it's not. We don't care, and the numbers of Oscar viewing and Academy Awards, all that stuff is down catastrophically. And the only reason any of us have even remembered that they exist is because they started attacking each other.
Well, I think a lot of us realized that at that moment we went, "Oh yeah, they're actors."
That's just it. They're professional liars. They're professional pretenders. We pay them to get up on stage and convince us that they're not who they are.
But remember, who was it that we were watching? The drunk guy. The
drunk guy. We still talking Hollywood? Because that could be anybody.
Well, he's a YouTube personality that we watch.
Oh, Critical Drinker.
Critical Drinker. Yes,
Awesome.
thank you.
Check out that.
Absolutely love him. But he was even talking
channel.
about how now, and that's why you and I are doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're able to get out and start channels and to put stuff out there, and we're not those celebrity types. So
No.
now people have more alternative
True.
measures rather than...
For all the damage that YouTube and Google and Alphabet currently do, there was a day where it was the Wild West.
Yeah.
And like you said, people can do whatever. Now, that's why we're primarily on Rumble. We upload to YouTube as well, but Rumble is at least trying to embody that spirit. And once upon a time, I mean, it really was great. You could go anywhere, see anything, find anything, and you know, obviously there are limits, as there should be, but they weren't stifled based on ideology. But back to this article real quick. I really wanted to highlight this for those who hadn't been aware of it. So she says, we know what that means, referencing the 18,000 a day. More secret migrant flights fanning out from the southern border to a town near you. Already, excuse me, charter flights to White Plains Airport in Winchester have started again after a hiatus following the Post's report last October revealing migrant planes landing in the middle of the night several times a week and unloading hundreds of migrants claiming to be children. These are illegal aliens. I don't know why they keep calling them migrants. To be spirited away on buses to locations around New York and neighboring states. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that one more time. This wasn't just in this area. If you want, look into Project Veritas. They had great undercover scoop on this whole thing happening where they were literally filming and interviewing the people doing it while it was happening. These planes, they are literally filling up planes with illegal aliens that have illegally crossed the border, flying them in the middle of the night to towns around the country with zero consent. Mitch McConnell famously came out and when they did this to Tennessee and said, no one authorized this. What are you doing? But secretly flying illegal aliens around the country and then just releasing them out. You don't want to see quote unquote kids in cages like you did during Obama. So what do you got? Well, we won't show you. We will literally just disperse them into the country. They are literally
Well, and again,
aiding
this
them.
just comes from bad leadership and bad policy.
Oh, yeah, understatement.
Immigration needs to be tightly controlled so that you know who's coming into the country and also what roles they're going to play and what impact they're going to have specifically on different regions.
Yep.
And then turning around and just dispersing them through places, that's just a panic move of, oh crap, we don't have enough provisions in place for these people, so we're just gonna dump this over here.
See, that's not even that. It's not even that. They could literally just turn them away. This is because along with that Project Veritas expose, they are not only releasing them out, but they're literally sending them to places where they can be guided to not only housing and work, but they are pampering them to vote Democrat. They're literally importing their new base
not anything
in the middle of the
new
night.
for that party.
It's not, but at the same time, doing it on this scale in the middle of the night, and they're doing it that way because they know what they're doing is not only illegal but outrageous.
But
It's the shadiest
where
thing
are the
ever.
people standing up? Like you said, where are the Republican side to this? Saying, where are they stepping out and saying, hey, guess what? No, you can't do this to my region. No, you can't do this to my state.
Yep.
Like, those are the representatives that need to open their eyes to this.
Well, unfortunately, and that is a great segue into our next article, but I'll answer you by saying this. Unfortunately, we wouldn't have known the true extent of this without Project Veritas and their expose. So really, even you can argue all day and night that the Uniparty across both aisles is aware of it happening, but if they weren't, by chance, it's not like you're seeing this on the media. It's not like this story is getting out there. They're suppressing it and hiding it. However, segueing into our next article from the Daily Wire, pushing back. GOP states file lawsuit against Biden administration's end of Title 42 border policy. Now, this isn't a direct pushback on what we were seeing before with the the aliens and the planes, but we at least know that some individuals are actually pushing back against ending Title 42. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, Arizona Attorney General Mark, Brnovich.
I'm going to go with Brnovich.
It could be a typo. There could be an E missing. And Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry are suing the Biden administration for ending Title 42 during the worst border crisis in decades. And again, that's an understatement. The three Republican leaders claim the rollback of the health policy will lead to an unprecedented crisis at the southern border that will have a devastating impact nationwide. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say this is one of those things where I'm excited to see this. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to see lately how more Republicans have turned to the system, to work within the system to fight these things. Instead of just saying, oh, well, they're running away with it, pay attention, pay attention.
Statements. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we might tout this, oh my gosh, yes, I'm pointing it out.
Yep.
But what is anybody actually doing about it aside from talking?
I like the way you think. And finally, we at least have somebody doing something. It says, time and time again, the Biden administration has failed to act to secure our southern border and have terminated successful programs like Title 42 and the, quote, Remain in Mexico policy. Missouri has been a leader in pushing back against the Biden administration's blah, blah, blah. We filed a suit against the cancellation of the Remain in Mexico policy and also filed suit to force the Biden administration to build the southwest border wall. Interestingly enough, I did read that the Biden administration has diverted funds from the southern border wall to. The article I read said to Ukraine, which is just an irony so ridiculous I can't even talk about it. But I'm pretty sure that article was showing bias. So I will say that those funds have been diverted to something completely probably opposite what they're meant to do, and that's protecting our border, solidifying our country. Anyway, sorry, back on the thing. If the Biden administration won't take proactive steps to secure our border and protect our citizenry, we certainly will, he added. The three leaders argue that the end of the policy will create an unprecedented surge at the southern border, which we have actually already seen video. There are caravans forming once again. They're monstrous, and they're already building up. It's not even they're forming far away and making their way to the border. They're already there.
This is one side of it from the Daily Wire, but when you look at like the press briefing and the release on how they announced this, like the Republican Party is pointing out that they're doing it.
Yep.
And they're going after him for it, which is great. But the way that the Biden administration announced repealing Title 42, it was like they wanted people to know that they're doing it, but they don't want the unintended consequences of that virtue signal. Because the what was it, the press secretary?
Psaki?
No.
Oh.
The other girl came out and
Psaki
said...
Light?
Yes, Psaki Light, whatever her name is. I can't remember what position she holds, but she came out during the conference and she says, we just want to remind everyone that asylum does not mean you're trying to get to the United States for more financial security.
Yeah, that was Psaki. She did say, someone else might have done it, but I do remember Psaki saying it too.
And that's the thing, is that they're trying to send this message under the radar to people who are fleeing to our border.
Yep.
Because if you were promised a better life, then of course you're going to pursue it. That is the American dream.
Yep.
And that's just the dream across humanity, I think, is that if you're promised a better, easier life, you want that.
It is not a statement of bigotry to say the American dream is for Americans, because the system of which we have created, we created for our country. Now, we welcome you to become an American. But if you look at the amount of money, and it is a lot, billions of dollars every year are wired from aliens, illegal aliens in this country to their home countries. I'm all about supporting your family and everything like that, but they're literally stealing our money and sending it somewhere else. Because every job that an illegal alien takes is one that somebody who would have had to contribute to society, paying taxes, supporting their community, would have had.
Well, and here's one of the bigger things is we could take on more immigrants. We could take on more of a workforce. We can take on more of these things if we have the companies based in the United States supplying those jobs.
Very true.
But when you can't have your cake and eat it too. I've always hated that expression because, I mean, I like my cake. But you cannot tell everybody to come to the United States and they'll have higher wages.
Yep.
Demand higher wages from companies and have those companies leave to go to other countries that have lower wages. There has to be a balance between that.
You're assuming a level of competency and respect for the country and the value of our dollar. And unfortunately, historically and even recently, they're showing no interest in
And
that.
it is really scary to see how they don't actually see that. I really think a lot of people who are leaning towards the policies that AOC spouts and that, we want to be charitable. Of course, everyone wants to be charitable.
Exactly. It's an easy thing, like I said, with the Affordable Care Act title. It's an easy thing to say, well, don't you want to be blank? You're not against blank, are you?
Yes.
Then you're like, okay, what does attacking the epidemic of farting cows, like she mentioned in her original Green New Deal letter, what does that have to do with being charitable? Well, that's just part of it.
Well, I mean, we've allowed ourselves to be degraded to the point where our studies don't mean anything.
Well, yes. I mean, you can find a study to support anything now.
Yeah.
Anything
Absolutely.
you want. Any mentality you want to hold, you can find something to back
Peer
it.
review means nothing. Stephen
Nope.
Crowder proved that.
Yes. Yep, exactly.
These theories, and it's always been that way. Like when you have great minds get together and discuss things, like look at the Eastern philosophy versus Western philosophy,
true.
look at capitalism versus communism. There's a different system for everyone, and there's a certain select people who make that system work because of how much they believe in it.
Exactly.
But getting into our country and completely changing the system, but then saying that you're going to maintain the benefits of the original, you can't have both.
You cannot.
You cannot have everything is free and competition at the same time.
Nope. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. The people that run these systems need to we really just need to well, first off, obviously, we need to reduce our government as much as possible, the federal government, that is. But the elements that remain need to be run like a business, and we, the people, need to see the results. I mean, they should be, in my opinion, they should be preparing reports on a weekly basis showing what they're doing, how they're spending our money, and we can all look over the budget and say, I don't like that, or that. Let's vote on those.
Yep. And we need to get rid of bad management.
We need to get rid of bad management, which is a fabulous segue into our next story here. We're going to end on a bit of a lighter note. But it is also a slightly... Oop, that too big? No, that's fine. It is a slightly optimistic note, however. For those of you who are unaware, Twitter is a cesspool. It is run by egomaniac liberals who just ban anything remotely conservative and try to solidify their bubble. However, there may be hope on the horizon. Also, a quick aside, as you know, if you want to avoid Twitter, take any link from twitter.com, replace twitter.com with nitter, nitter.net. It will instantly show you everything going on. No paywall, no bugging you about signing up, nothing like that. Just a little note. We'll see that here in a second. But Elon Musk, our favorite African-American, now one of Twitter's largest shareholders. Elon Musk has become one of the largest shareholders in social media giant Twitter after a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission showed he holds 9.2% of a stake in the company. Elon Musk is blah, 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 blah. This comes after it was rumored that Musk might be in the market to buy Twitter and secure the holding for free speech in America, following CEO Parag Agrawal's claim that Twitter is not beholden to American free speech laws. An American company run by an individual who I believe is not originally of this country, who is now saying, we're not going to abide by the First Amendment. Fabulous. The filing on Monday from the CEO was signed by Musk, dated Monday, April 4th. Musk has not made a statement about the stake he holds in the company, according to Financial Times. Oddly enough, as a result of this, Twitter stock rose 23% in reaction to the news. It showed Musk going 75, blah, blah, blah. We would expect this passive stake as just the start of a broader conversation with the Twitter board/management that could ultimately lead to an active stake in a potential more aggressive ownership role of Twitter. Fabulous. And Musk had said that he was giving serious insight to building an alternative social media platform to Twitter. In response to a question from another Twitter user, as you can see from this tweet here, somebody said, would you consider building a new social media platform, one that would consist of an open source algorithm, one where free speech and adhering to free speech is given top priority, and where propaganda is very minimal? I think that kind of a platform is needed, Musk said, and giving serious thought to this. And Elon Musk has just been unchained these last couple months. He doesn't care anymore, and I love that about him.
Well, I mean, he's cutting ties to a lot of stuff and putting stake in the fact that he doesn't want to be on this planet much longer.
I don't think that's it. I think you're thinking of Jeff Bezos. Elon Musk wants... He doesn't want to be on the planet in the sense that he wants to expand.
No, he sold all of his real estate.
Oh, he did sell all of his real estate?
I can't remember which article it is. I'm going to have to find it for you, maybe for tomorrow.
Oh, fabulous.
But one of the things said that Elon Musk does not own any real estate at this point. He has sold all of his personal real estate. And I believe anything where he's staying is being rented back through the company, and the company owns it. And obviously, it's all set up within that. Course. But the idea is he made the promise that I believe by 2023 he was not going to own any more real estate personally.
Isn't it fabulous? They literally like Elizabeth Warren attacking him for his holdings, attacking him for these things, and he just goes, "All right, there. Now what? What do you got? You going to follow my lead? You going to do this too?" And of course, they always back down. My favorite was, I want to say it was a representative of the World. No, it wasn't the World Health Organization. Was it the United Nations? Oh, a global representative, and I'll have to pull this article up, tweeted out that Elon Musk had $11 billion. He could end world hunger with that. And he's answered back, you were given $8 billion last year. What have you done with it? And of course, all of a sudden he crawled back into his little hole. They're trying to do this thing. And it's one of their last little things that they're hoping that the libtards will clench onto, where they're like, you hate rich people? Look, there's rich people over here. We're gonna tax them more, and we're gonna get them.
Yep.
And at this point, we're all like, you're the rich, corrupt person destroying our system, not Elon Musk. You.
Well, and they're essentially saying, give me money and I'll make it fair.
Yep.
Well, why would I continue to give you money when you haven't been making it fair? And guess what? The world is not fair.
Joe Biden entered Congress at 29 years old? 29 yeyears old. He is now almost 80. What has he done in his 50 years?
Yeah. See, and it goes back to, and
aside from enrich his family.
You and I would love to enact certain policies, when it comes to government, but we are the small people in this.
Oh, well, yes, but that's just it. Our country was founded on the principle that everybody gets a say in choosing their representative. Representatives of those people then get their say, and it's very interesting. People keep the Democrats keep saying it's a democracy. Guess what? It's not, and it never has been. It's a constitutional republic, because a democracy is pointless. You cannot rule by majority, because the little guy needs a say too. Oh, what's that saying? A democracy is two wolves and a sheep discussing what's for dinner. A constitutional or a republic is a well-armed sheep contesting the vote, I believe is the saying. I think that's what it is, but it's very important. Interestingly enough, the former face of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, chimed in. Elon Musk said Twitter algorithms should be open source. Jack replied, the choice of which algorithm to use or not should be open to everyone. Oh, I'm glad he's making these revelations now. Here's a follow-up. He says, the days of Usenet, IRC, the web, even email were amazing. Centralizing discovery and identity into corporations really damaged the internet. I realize I'm partially to blame and regret it. There's nothing partial about it. Jack Dorsey, alongside Mark Zuckerberg, alongside Alphabet, Google, they have worked very hard to cultivate the situation that we are in now. I mean, even recently, suppressing the Hunter Biden story, calling it Russian disinformation, banning people from talking about it in public or private means, no sharing of links. It is all disinformation spread by Russia. Oops. Guess we have to admit 2 years later it's real, but, well, whatever. Even though it showed, I think it was just a base poll, 15% of Biden voters said if they had known about the Hunter Biden laptop, and that it was legit, would not have voted for him, and there goes the election. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but these people
at this point
have power over our elections. At this point, you're right. Eyes have been opened.
At this point, we need to look at it.
Yes.
Like, we need to prevent that from happening again.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he's even willing to say I'm partially to blame and I regret it, shows you how the left, the liberal left, who has all of these policies, who had backing from these companies, because these companies were essentially promised, we'll protect you if you endorse our candidates, if you push our platform, and then they turn around and try to attack Facebook.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, then they turn around and try to attack these places.
It's because they're peddling to everyone. They're pandering to everyone. They're saying, like I said, oh, well, we got to go after these tech firms and these billionaires and all this. And no, you're trying to divert the fact that they helped you steal an election. You can spin it any way you want, folks, but that's exactly what happened because, like I said, ignoring any of the craziness, and if we do our tinfoil hat show, we can go into the election irregularities that have come up in various states since that point, but keeping it just to what is being reported in the mainstream media.
Yes, and just to moving forward what the future is going to hold.
Exactly. You can say if 15% of Biden voters wouldn't have voted for him had they known about this story, this true story, which was suppressed by all mainstream media at the time, that would have changed the election. That alone should terrify you, the power that these people wield. However, the last thing I am going to show you from knitter.net, this Elon Musk tweet was not in the article, and I felt like it should have been. He says, given that Twitter serves as the de facto public town square, failing to adhere to free speech principles fundamentally undermines democracy. What should be done? Is a new platform needed? I would say adamantly yes. And there's, there is hope. There's always hope. We know about, Gab. We know Gab, they've hit Gab with everything. They tried to take him down every single way. And Andrew Torba has done an amazing job of not only resisting all attacks, but rising from the flames like a phoenix and just continuing on with his free speech platform. And then something even simple like Rumble as an alternative to as an alternative to YouTube.
Yes.
Because that's what our country is all about. That's what capitalism is all about. Options. They tried their hardest to eliminate all other options except what they approved of. And now we're finally at a point where people are saying, "Nuh-uh." And even someone as powerful
in
and
my
rich
opinion,
as
people,
Elon Musk.
companies can make their own decision on what they will and will not censor on their platforms.
The only
because
issue
they're
with
a company.
that is you have to consider Section 230. They are exempt from liability because they claim they're a public square. Public squares
That's
cannot
what I'm
censor.
saying. Like,
yes.
we need to make sure that they are aware of the fact that they're following the rules of that, where they're not censoring anybody.
No. We need to hold their feet to the fire, and I think that's what you're saying. They need to be brought down a couple pegs.
Well, so if they want to censor people, then people stop using that platform. That's the benefit of being in the country that we're in.
True.
And if these platforms want to continue and to gain back some of the people that they've lost, some of the traffic that they rely on, then they need to start easing those restrictions. They need to start coming out and saying, okay, you know what? We're going to go ahead and allow this. And not just for one side or the other. It needs to be a balanced, we're opening it up.
100% agree. The issue is, at that point, they have to admit that they did censor them. And to this day, even with all the physical evidence, they will adamantly say, oh, no, they broke a rule. What rule? No, I'm not obligated to say. They broke the rule of not being in your echo chamber. And that's what's happening over and over, which is why I agree 100% with you from a capitalist point of view. But from a Section 230 point of view, they should lose that status and then, therefore, like any company, be liable to be sued.
But then we're talking about, government regulation on platforms of free speech and what the company's allowed to do. That, to me, do away with the government regulation of it.
Oh, so just Section 230 out the window?
Yes.
I could go with that.
Because then people are allowed to get on the platform that has the viewpoint that they want to listen to. And there's alternatives now. It's not like we had just one platform and there was a monopoly on it. There are other places people can go to voice their opinions.
Which is only a recent development.
And this is one of those things where people say, oh, well, cancel culture, is a horrible, toxic thing. No, it's really not. When it comes down to it, vote with your dollar.
Yep.
Vote with your time.
Yep.
Focus on the things that you enjoy and the things that you believe in, and stop focusing so much on if somebody else has a different point of view.
Absolutely. I agree. So I'm with you. In fact, I like that you took it the next step. Just revoke Section 230 immunity. If you don't want to play by the public square rules, you can do what you want. It's your business, but we ain't protecting you anymore.
Exactly.
I love it. That is a great...
Take it away as an out.
That's a great note to end on as well, because Oh boy, actually, no, we didn't do too bad today. Pretty
It
fun.
felt
I
like we
enjoyed it.
rambled a little bit, but I think we're good.
Rambling's always fun. Rambling's a part of venting. So, again, I'm going to do my little plug here. Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey Show. We're going to tentatively do our first episode tonight, aiming to release it Saturday. We'll talk about that more as it unwinds.
Yes.
So if you are a Doctor Who
Fingers
fan.
crossed my boy is the one we get to watch.
Oh, yes. Well, we won't go into too much detail. You'll have to watch the show to see how it works, but it should be a fun time. Any closing thoughts?
Well, just as always, if you have an opinion one way or another and you've been listening to us or watching us on Rumble, YouTube, iPod, wherever you're listening, make sure that you reach out to us. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this, because it's kind of an open-ended discussion of where we're headed as a country and what's going on social media.
Exactly.
And as always, like, subscribe so you can see more of our channels and more of the things that we discussed, including that wibbly wobbly timey wimey rewatch.
And any of the other shows we have in the pipeline. I 100% agree. Feel free to comment. Feel free to like, share, anything you like. We love it. We love everybody. So that is all for us. I hope everybody has a fabulous day. We will see you all tomorrow.